From Delaware, Ms. McBride, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Stevens. Thank you so much, Director Kratsios, for joining us today. You mentioned earlier data centers and the administration's concern with mitigating community impact, and I've certainly heard from countless Delawareans that are worried about data centers being constructed in their communities, straining our energy and water supply and increasing the cost of utilities for all of us. That's why I've fought for funding and legislation aimed at developing liquid cooling technologies produced in my state of Delaware that will ensure data centers are smaller and more environmentally friendly. This is a common sense investment in a smarter, more sustainable future that could shrink physical data center footprints by as much as 60% and cut energy consumption by as much as 90%. And so I'd love to hear from you about what the administration is doing specifically to mitigate the effects of data centers on their surrounding communities? And is the administration utilizing its funding capacity to incentivize liquid cooling technologies as part of that mitigation strategy?
I think many of you may have seen the truth that the president put out a couple of days ago, where he made clear the administration position on data centers and electricity prices for ratepayers. What he wrote there was he essentially wanted to make sure that American technology companies who are building data centers are footing the bill for their technology build out. And he commended an announcement by Microsoft that happened just this week, where they have essentially taken that message to heart and have committed that anytime they build a data center, they will pay 100% of the generation costs. We'll continue to work with technology companies to make sure that this is a reality, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that ratepayers are protected. The other thing that the administration has done, which was a big change from the previous administration, was a changing in the way that we can approve behind-the-meter energy production. Under the Biden administration, behind-the-meter production of energy electricity was banned. And because of that, if you're a data center provider, you had to, by law, tap into the larger grid for that energy. FERC under President Trump changed that, and now you can do behind-the-meter build-out. That's something that obviously is beneficial to general ratepayers. I think probably more in my portfolio and is the question around what kind of technologies can we build to make data centers more efficient. I don't know the specifics about the liquid cooling, but at first glance, that sounds amazing. Let's figure out who's working on that and get some funding towards it. My hope would be as a free market person that a lot of these data center providers and chip developers would be extraordinarily incentivized to try to be more productive. So hopefully catching on to that tailwind and finding places where more federally funded R&D could be beneficial could help turbocharge that.
Great. I look forward to hopefully working with you specifically on the benefits and potential of that liquid cooling technology. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the administration's AI action plan released last year. You've talked about it. Among other things, it suggests that we need clear national standards for people to truly trust and use AI. And I heard Chair Babin earlier say that he supports consensus-based standards as well, and I'm happy to say I agree with that. That's why I was proud to introduce the READ AI Models Act with Chair Obernolte. This bill would direct NIST to standardize evaluation documents for AI models. I like to think of it as nutrition labels for AI models through a consensus-based process, consistently documenting information needed to assess safety, performance, and risk of AI models in a modular and voluntary manner. This would bring transparency to AI in a way that's simple, consistent, and accessible. The administration's AI action plan sees national AI standards as a tool to build trust. Do you think that standardized modular evaluation documents for AI models like the one I described would be helpful?
I think things like that are obviously things to look at and think about and work on. To me, when I broadly think about AI standards, the first thing that comes to mind is there is an unfortunate overemphasis on the evaluation of a small handful of frontier models. The reality is that the most implementation that's going to happen across industry is going to happen through fine-tuned models for specific use cases, and it's going to be trained on specific data that the large frontier models never had access to. So in my opinion, the greatest work that NIST could do is to create the science behind how you measure models, such that anytime that you have a specific model for finance, for health, for agriculture, whoever's attempting to implement it has a framework and a standard around how they can evaluate that model. Because at the end of the day, the massive proliferation is going to be through these smaller fine-tuned models for specific use cases.
Well, definitely agree that those are worthy goals, and I hope you'll work with me and the chair on our legislation. And we welcome feedback and collaboration. So thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. We'll go next to my colleague.